SOC analysts are unsung heroes. The SOC Analyst Appreciation Day Awards program recognizes analysts who go above and beyond the call of duty and handle their pressure-packed jobs exceptionally well. SOC leaders nominate your top-performing team members to show them just how much you appreciate everything they do to thwart cybercrime. DEVA will award analysts during this year's SOC Analyst Appreciation Day events on October 19th. You have until September 6th to get your nominations in. Visit securityweekly.com/Devo to learn more. Every hack follows the same pattern. First, hackers exploit a human error, like a leaked key or a secret left in code. They gain a foothold and then pivot, moving from one compromised system to the next. Teleport breaks this cycle. Open source Teleport gives every engineer, every piece of hardware, every application an identity, replacing secrets like passwords and keys with auto-expiring identity-based certificates. Learn why most visionary businesses in the world choose Teleport at securityweekly.com/teleport. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your device. You can also join our mailing list Discord server and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcast technical trainings and at securityweekly.com/on-demand. All righty. Let's see. We've added a host. Mr. Lee Neely is here with us somewhere on one of my screens, I think. There he is. He's muted, though. He is talking.
He's muted, though.
Damn it.
Yes.
I'm
now
right
he's
over here.
Lee Neely, welcome to the show, my friend.
Good to be here. I am, celebrating quite a bit, wrapping up details related to getting my mom's affairs situated. So
That's good. That's good. We've I just keep handing Jason Albuquerque cigars, so he is still here in studio.
100%.
Texting his wife, going, I gotta
Gonna be late, honey.
They're
I'm gonna be
short-handed.
late.
I gotta stick around for this segment.
I got another cigar and some gin now.
Let's see. We have two special guests with us for a very special announcement. Daniel Niefield. Did I say that right, Daniel? Neifeld. That's what I meant to say.
You didn't ask beforehand.
I didn't. There were a last-minute addition. So Zachary Stasius. Did I get that right?
Stasis.
Damn it, 2 for 2.
0 for 2. So I'm just going to say Dan.
Or 2 for two.
I was going to say Dan and Zach. Is that right? Dan and Zach?
Yeah, that works. That's better.
Dan and Zach.
But not
welcome.
Zach and Dan.
Zach and Dan.
Awkward.
Dan and Zach are the co-founders of Hack RedCon, which is a security conference happening September 7th through the 11th in Louisville, Kentucky. This is not the next DerbyCon, because everyone, when you say there's a security conference in Louisville, Kentucky, everyone goes, "Oh, is it like DerbyCon?" Like maybe a little, but it's Hack RedCon, and Dan and Zach are going to tell us a little bit about it. So first, I want to know a little bit about your backgrounds. Like, what do you guys do for like day jobs and stuff?
Well, I do red teaming, penetration testing, bug hunting. Started several years back at a couple different companies, and here I am today.
And that was Zach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Zach.
Zach, yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, I run an international accounting firm specializing in financial investigations, and my background's computer science and social engineering. So spent about the last 10 years around social engineering and red team engagements. Zach and I are super old friends. We've been friends since we were 5, and about 6 years ago we came together to form a penetration testing firm, and it's ever since then kind of blown up. So
now, Dan and Zach, were you guys like out drinking and had this crazy idea like, hey, we're gonna throw a security conference? Like,
we told him already? I think we've already told him. So we'd wrapped up a red team engagement a few years ago, and several of my friends that I used to go to DerbyCon with, we were all reminiscing, talking about the good times we used to have and how much we missed it and whatnot. And then our friends kind of looked at us and were just like, we should all throw a conference. And then they looked at Dan and I, specifically the two extroverts in the introverted group, and they were like, you guys should throw a security conference.
Tag, you're it.
After probably 6 or 7 bourbons.
Yeah, there's definitely 6 or 7 old fashions involved in that.
Because no good story ever started with, hey, we had a salad.
Right. But
I speak from experience when I say that is typically how conferences start. Seriously.
Well, because like I think we all want to throw a conference, but then we want to turn to our like someone else and go like, "Will you be responsible for like organizing it and running it?" Because that's the least fun part, right?
Well,
Yeah, at first we
some
were
of
just
that you
like,
can't
we
hire
could
out.
throw a party, but then here we are almost 2 years later, and it's been quite a struggle. It's not throwing a party; it's a really big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Lee, you had a comment in there?
Yeah, I was going to say I have a friend who managed to find a coordinator to do a lot for that, but it's something like $12,000 for a one-day conference to do that. It's kind of expensive. But
Well, and
stress is removed.
As Dan and Zach can probably attest to, like all that work, you guys have been working on this for 2 years.
Yeah, so we started talking about this 2 years ago. The last year, basically full time, between Zach and I, we're putting in about 100 hours a week. I put the accounting practice, kind of pass it to my partners. I'm putting about 75 hours a week into it. It's a lot, right? And so we brought in a couple admins that have been treasure to us to kind of help us. And still with all that, it's just, you can see this board behind us. It's just insanity. We're, a million tasks. We're basically grinding, trying to find sponsors. Event coordinating is a, it's a massive undertaking, which both of us had no really experience in. I mean, we're technical folks. We work with numbers, work with, machines. So the whole thing is that when we started to talk about it and then put it on paper, totally different monster. Had to build so many connections, and really the community has come behind us. Folks like Tyler, Ed Scotus, and so many others have just contributed, introducing us to people.
Blind Hacker, Joby.
Blind Hacker. I mean, just endless. I mean, just so many different people have come behind us to basically say, hey, we want to support you in so many different ways. We really couldn't do it without everybody.
So Dan and Zach, I'm gonna put you on the spot, but I'm gonna do it because I really want to help you and support this effort. Let's start with attendees. As an attendee, why do I want to attend?
Well, we've opened this up a lot too. So at first we kind of decided we wanted to do the conference, like our own way rather than just the, following the normal mold. We focus a lot on doing free training. So the 7th and 8th, we actually have CISA coming out and doing some free training. Dan and I will be doing a course on pen testing and social engineering. Free to the attendees. And then on the 9th and 10th, we actually have opened it up to a lot of colleges, people in the community. Anything you want to add to that?
No, wait.
Yeah,
hold on, Zach. I think you did a great job right there. So a great reason is I can go to my employer and go, I can go here and get free training, right? From CISA, not from like someone they may not recognize. Like I can get free training from CISA. That's fantastic. How much does it cost to attend the conference?
So the conference tickets are $250 for the 9th and 10th. The training is totally free on the 7th and 8th. Students across the board are free, not only the 7th and 8th, but the 9th and 10th.
And there's a 10% off for Security Weekly folks.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And
so
your Black Badge network participators.
Black Badge Exchange. Yeah, we're going to be part of that. We actually are. One of our side projects is we're actually building a website that's going to help keep a database of all of the previous Black Badge winners in different conferences to make it easier to look up for someone who's maybe like, starting a new conference, or you just want to, if you're working at a conference and you want to verify who's won one. It's one of our side things right now is actually building that out and making it easy for people to recognize previous Black Badge winners, whether it was at any other conference.
Oh, Gary Reimer and I are the last 2 Black Badge winners of DerbyCon.
So black
You just want a free ticket.
I get it. Black Badge winners get a free ticket, and then Security Weekly listeners, you said are going to get some kind of. Are you going to give them a discount?
10% off.
10% off. Sweet.
Yep, with the code Security Weekly.
With the code Security Weekly.
Which is in the Discord already and in the show notes.
Sweet.
That's
awesome. Now, also, what would make me want to go to the conference would be also Ed Scotus. Ed and I, I mean, we've been friends collectively with everyone here on the show for a long time with Ed. And Ed is one of your keynotes, correct?
Yeah. Ed Scotus was one of my first mentors several years back and stayed in touch the whole time. And every time I went to DerbyCon, I'd see him, hang out with him for a few minutes, Just when we were putting together the conference, one of the first things I said to Dan is we have to have Ed. He's pretty much the reason I am where I am today. And I would kill to have him there. I reached out via email, and he was our first yes. He was the first person I reached out to, and immediately was like, "I'm in, Zach. Let's go." So we have him part of the roundtable keynote the first day.
That's fantastic. I also love that it's on the East Coast. I was just telling some of my cohorts here, like, we live on the East Coast. We got to go to the West Coast like a lot for RSA, for Black Hat. If you look at ISC Squared Congress, Las Vegas. I'm like, I want more conferences on the East Coast where, like, especially now, like, if my flight gets canceled, I can just drive. not driving across the country, you can, but it's not fun, right? And you probably wouldn't make it there in time. So I applaud you for creating a conference on the East Coast. I think it's great.
Yeah, that was definitely one of our thought processes with Louisville. Is you could drive in from Virginia, from St. Louis. It's only a 3-hour drive, so we know so many different people in the Midwest and DC area, what have you. So
I used to work in Atlanta, and a lot of my old coworkers and friends and associates were all driving up from Atlanta together. They usually do it. They were doing it for DerbyCon. They're doing it for us. So pretty excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I think you guys chose a great location, right? Because most of us have fond memories of DerbyCon because most of us attend it. I think, did all of us? Jason, have you been to DerbyCon?
I have not, no.
I think Jason might be one of the only ones that has not attended DerbyCon in the past. So,
Jason, please give up your red team card.
But Zach and Dan, how is it like DerbyCon and how is it not like DerbyCon?
I would say it's like DerbyCon in the sense that when we first started to talk about it and think about it, we wanted to have it as a HackerCon. Limited vendors, technical talks from experts, not only red teamers, by the way, purple teamers, blue teamers, folks from the Intel community, law enforcement on the federal and state level. So that was the idea, is to kind of hone in on the technical side and the hacking community. Keep the vendors as limited as possible, and then really just create events and kind of competitions similar to what Derby did, right? So
make it fun. We have we're going to do like a Hacker Jeopardy, of course. We're going to have a slide shenanigans. Eagle Mog helped us name that one.
Oh no!
And then of course we're marketing geniuses, and it's a red team, blue team, purple team conference. And we named it Hack RedCon.
No, I think the name is great. I think it's great.
I mean,
the first question we get every single time is it just a red team conference?
Yeah. I mean, what else could you have done with red, blue, and purple? Could have been like Hack Brews Con?
Yeah.
Rainbow Con, that would connotate something else.
Yep. I mean, it wouldn't be such a bad thing, but not what
you're going.
Yeah, not the target
marketing.
Actually, Larry, Hack Brews Con would be something else as well, but that's not here, there. Anyway.
Right. Good point, Josh. Good point.
Now wait, Zach and Dan, we put you on the spot again. If I'm a sponsor, or I got to go to my company and say we should sponsor this event. Year one is tough, right? To do that, and sponsorship is tough. I mean, take it from me. What can we do to entice some sponsors to get you where you need to be this year?
So our biggest thing, and one of our greatest missions, is about education, training, and mentoring. So we've really put a huge emphasis on that. So when we went out and built the free training, it wasn't just for students. We went to the local economy. We went to small banks, healthcare companies, local government, law enforcement. And the big thing there is that we know they might not have budget right now, but a lot of those folks in the community need that. As a sponsor, you really get great exposure. Our entire platform is built with DEI in place, so just people from different backgrounds. Zach and I, we grew up here in South Florida from humble beginnings. A lot of our friends in South Florida are just Jamaican, Haitian, Colombian, Puerto Rican, Asian. So we wanted to just continue that legacy of our life, to bring in as many walks of life, different people from the community that might not have access, might not have the ability, might not have the right mentors in their corner. And so that was our biggest thing. So we feel like sponsors can get that kind of exposure through education and mentoring.
The pipeline of the new generation of penetration testers, hackers, blue teamers, you name it. We're trying to just bring in new folk and make those introductions to the companies, because everyone's hiring, right? There's never enough hackers in the community.
Mm. Yeah, so it's a good event to do recruiting. But also you folks have worked hard to bring in people from various companies that maybe wouldn't have the budget to travel out to a big RSA or Black Hat. So companies might get different leads.
Yeah. I start to think about your non-traditional educational facilities, right? Like Year Up. You have kids who got out of high school, they're interested in a career in cybersecurity. Would you consider that an education waiver if they're in a year up program, or something like Skills for Rhode Island, right, which is disenfranchised workforce trying to get into a certain, into IT or into cybersecurity? Because I can promote that here in Rhode Island, I'm heavily involved with those type of non-traditional education organizations.
Yeah, that's actually a big emphasis point. So we have a couple of initiatives. One is a 12-city awareness tour. We're partnered with some different athletes that are retired. They have nonprofit facilities in Brooklyn, Atlanta, Chicago, primarily low-income kids that go to these facilities. So there's computers there. Zach and I are going to travel 1 weekend a month around the country next year, creating awareness, talking to them in all these different cities, meeting with local community partners, local government partners, corporates, with the idea that we want to leverage DEI funds and corporate dollars. And what we're saying is, instead of you spending the $60,000 or $70,000 on the first year for recruiting through headhunters, fund the students. We'll help train them. We'll help mentor them. We'll set them up in either the OSCP or some of the other certs, and effectively create a pipeline where, one, you're saving money on recruiting, but two, you're really making a true impact on the community. I mean, the biggest thing for us is that you don't need a college degree. You need a certificate, experience, and great mentors. And so that's one of our biggest pushes and focuses, is to kind of drive that message and kind of develop that new pipeline through the certificates and the non-traditional way of education, which we're big believers that it just doesn't make sense that, for a young student or a kid to come up and getting a job, they have to get loans, which drives them down. So we're trying to disrupt the model that way. And that's one of the big things that we wanted to do. Was we knew how important DerbyCon was to the community, and we knew we were never going to be them. But we wanted to figure out how could we make a positive impact on the community, utilizing the kind of the past of what DerbyCon built out, and of course with our own take and flavor. So
yeah, that's awesome. And there's so many workforce development grants out there that are starting to support these type of initiatives. So yeah, let's leverage that to the best of our ability. Cheers to you guys, man. Kudos to you guys for opening it up to non-traditional educational facilities, nonprofits, those type of things, because that is the future of the workforce.
Well,
100%.
If you take a look at the sponsor list is awesome. And these aren't all big, huge companies. These are people like, we know the key people, and I bet you they'll be there for, if you go there and network, you might walk away with a job.
That's one of the big things. That's one of the big things. We were at DEF CON. Dark Wolf Solutions, Tyler Fordham is coming out. Tim Roberts is coming out. And we were just talking about that. There's so many, a lot of these smaller companies are looking for high quality talent. They have contracts, they have work out there, and it's hard to compete with the really big companies. So we feel like that's a big plus for the sponsors, that they can come out and make those connections directly, kind of in a more intimate place, and build those relationships and get to know people, versus the bigger cons. Like when we were at DEF CON, I mean, it's just a massive.
Everyone knows what DEF CON is.
Yeah. So
place you can get lost.
Yep. Hey, I'm gonna put you guys on the spot as well, but and year one, I don't expect this to be your primary focus, because it sounds like you've already got an amazing focus for breaking the model for all of this free stuff for those who are in transition and so forth. But and I'm asking this selfishly, why would I want to bring my family to HackRedCon? Because I know the only way I'm going to get to go is if I can convince my wife on our 20th wedding anniversary to go to HackRedCon.
Oh,
no, it's actually a great question. So I'm a single father. I have two young kids. One of my 14-year-old's already taken Python, JavaScript, trying to push him into the offensive security path. We partnered with cyber.org, which is backed by CISA in Palo Alto, to do a K through 12 training. And so one of our big focuses is not only the free professional training, but focusing on K through 12. Both of us are huge believers that we need to have our young kids, even at kindergarten, first grade, teaching them about technology, teaching them about the ethics about what we're doing, the missions that we're involved in, and then helping them to learn technology at the youngest ages. I just believe that computer science is a global language that kids need to learn. So that's our big focus, is when it comes to kids and the family side of things, is to push the K through 12 training so that kids can come and join and have a great time while the adults are, doing their thing and on the professional side and the competitions and the villages and what have you that we have set up. So
we partnered with, like you said, cyber.org, and we actually were in talks with Hack for Kids, but they're double booked that week. So, but next year we're really hoping and praying that he's come out and be a part of that. I know DEF CON Roots is gone, but kind of start up our own child, hacking village or something like that. So just to be able to bring them out and show them some new cool things and get them interested.
Yeah, that lines up perfectly with what we're doing here in Rhode Island with the CTE programs, right? Those career and technical education programs where, the high school students know, hey, I'm probably not built to go to university or to college, but I want to be able to leave and be able to go into the workforce right away. So they're going into these CTE programs. We have a couple of schools, and actually it's the town that Paul lives in that is starting a cybersecurity focused CTE program at the high school level.
Awesome.
Coventry, Rhode Island, right? They're going to be one of the first here in the state. So to be able to pull from that and be able to promote it, right? Your organization goes to the superintendent and says, listen, we have a spot here for your CTE kids to come learn, experience a conference and get educated.
They had a 2-day thing. And my oldest son went to day one and he's like, Dad, just sorry, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, cool. Like you
Yeah.
break my heart, but I'm not going to put you in
it.
something you don't want to do, right? Yeah.
But there's also kids who want it.
Yeah.
They want to go into the CTE program.
Well, that's what he was like. He's like, all these other kids are like, that's what they like to do in their spare time. Brayden's like, dude, I want to do like welding.
Cool. Right.
So he's in the welding program,
Sure,
but that's his thing, right? But having these different programs, I think, is super important for the kids, and then for the ones
and then
that
support
want to
from
do,
the community,
yes,
right? Then support from the community to
ones
say,
that
listen,
want to do it,
come, let's help grow you, right? Let's help grow you into this community.
That's one of the biggest things that we found. So we connected with, so we have Indiana University, University of Louisville, Northern Kentucky University, Kentucky University, and probably the most important, I would say, is the community college and technical schools throughout Kentucky. There's 16 schools in total that we're partnered now with, and we're trying to bring them in. But that's one of the biggest things for us is to kind of tap into that pool of kids that don't think they're prepared for college or ready for college, but they want to get into a technical skill. They want to have to study for a year and get trained. So we're hoping to be able to be prevalent in all 16 of those schools on the community college level and kind of bring new faces in. That the other thing is too. I was in T-Mobile last week. 2 young men in their 20s, both well-spoken, both minorities, and both of them had.
Dude, I thought you were saying like I was in T-Mobile. I'm like, dude, how'd you hack in? Like, did you have permission?
Come on, give us the deets. Let's go.
Zach is on the Hall of Fame. But anyway, so we walk in and we're having this conversation. They're both very well-spoken, and I asked them. I said, have you guys ever thought about social engineering? So I'm basically a billboard, an unofficial billboard for the cyber community. I just everywhere I go, I'm talking about it and asking people. Both of them had no idea what social engineering was, had no idea what pen testing was, and had no clue that ethical hacking was even a career field.
Yeah. Didn't they have MBAs?
Both of them had MBAs, well-spoken, and they're selling cell phones at T-Mobile. No offense to T-Mobile, right? But ultimately, we're, I just think there's a gap there, right? And that's one of the things we want to be able to try to fulfill is to reach those communities that aren't thinking about the career path that would be excellent fits. I mean, one of the guys in particular, and so I shared a bunch of resources. He's supposed to be coming up from Miami. So yeah, we feel like that's just a huge opportunity for all of us to be able to leverage our goodwill, the things the knowledge we know, and just being able to be a mentor.
Yeah. But
Zach, why don't you tell?
That was my other. I just want to put a PSA out there. Like, if you are attending Hack RedCon, be a good role model, because it sounds like you've attracted a lot of new people in the field or that haven't been in the field before to this conference. So please be a good role model.
Yes. So do you guys ever see yourself opening it up to virtual attendance, right? Because I think of it this way: you get a 12th grader. They may want to attend, but they can't physically go there, right? But a CTE program like the one that's in Coventry may say, you want to know what? Part of the CTE program is you're going to attend 2 days of this virtual conference. Do you ever see it expanding to that level?
We do, for sure. I mean, so the first year we didn't want to do too much, right? Because we didn't have experience. We didn't have the contacts. We still don't have the budget. We're still fighting to kind of break even on it. So we decided to go in person to try to create that intimate vibe that Derby had, but we ultimately do see that. And that's part of kind of the programs we're thinking about, these year programs, we do want to have a virtual component, not only for locally, right, in the United States, 12th graders or high school students, but internationally. We've had a lot of interest from folks in Israel and South America, in the Middle East, that are asking us, hey, we can't come, but we'd love to, see you guys online and virtually. So I think hopefully next year, right, we'll see if we can cross the bridge and manage it and have the right team and everything. But we definitely think that's the future of it.
Zach, did you come to the Security Weekly table at DerbyCon and buy like a bunch of Hack Naked shirts one year?
Probably.
I swear that's how I met you at DerbyCon. I swear you bought like a bunch of Hack Naked shirts.
Absolutely. I probably bought them for my whole team when I was working. I don't want to name names of companies. I'm not sure I'm allowed to.
But I think you were working for a company. I'm buying them for my coworkers.
Yeah.
All right.
Of course.
I knew you looked familiar. Now I've placed it. Well, that's awesome. Anything else, Dan, Zach? Do you want to promote for the conference?
Just back to the mentoring idea. I mean, I've been mentoring. So for the last probably several years, I've been. I usually adopt a young adult, like 22, 23-year-old fresh out of college, who's like, I got a cybersecurity degree, can't get a job, I don't know what to do with it. I just let them live with me, and I pay for their food and their rent, and then train them and mentor them and teach them. And then usually 6-7 months out, they go get their OCP, and I usually get them their first job, whether it's an intern on one of my teams, one of my friends' teams. And I've created just a factory where I've pumped out some good talent, and that's kind of where we want to expand on that, because I've done that with about 10 students. I actually have one right now living in my apartment, and that's us being able to have a bigger reach where we can do the 12-week tour, and we're actually working on a 52-week training program. Dan mentioned, where we can just take that the 10 people I've done that with and do that 100 per year. That would be my legacy. That's what we're looking to do, is just expand the community and help where we can.
That's awesome.
My
That's
goodness.
awesome.
I understand now why it's 75 to 100 hours a week on doing some of this stuff, because salt of the earth. I just don't know what to say. Like, you guys are providing so much opportunity for so many folks through all of your actions that I don't think anybody could ever compete. Not that it's a competition, but I applaud all of the stuff that you're doing.
100%. What can we be doing here and the Security Weekly listeners to help promote, right? Obviously, social media, sharing stuff there, but what can we do to help spread the word?
Oh, definitely social media. Of course, just getting the word out in any form of volunteering that you guys can help would be phenomenal. I think our biggest ask, more than anything else, not just with the conferences, for all of us here and the people that are listening, they're in the field, to mentor other people. Our biggest ask is, we don't want any money. We want to do, for the kids, for the students, or even young adults. The only one thing we ask is to do it for somebody else, because if you mentor that one person, it could affect millions. So that's I'd say probably one of the biggest asks, right, is to just help us to continue to build this network. And then I guess the other thing is, if anybody out there has content, right? So if they have training courses they've developed, if they have talks they've put out there, share it with us and
open source it.
And let's open source it. I mean, that's ultimately our longer term goal, is to create an open sourced framework for the cyber community and the technical community, so that young kids from where we came from the communities that don't have access, can develop the skills and access and effectively jump into any of these discords when they need help, because we feel like that one question could change their lives. So
you're every student I've had, one thing they ask me when I get them their first job, and they say, what can we do for you now? And I'm like, let's go to dinner. You buy me dinner once, because I've probably paid for the last 6 months of your food. And then, I like steak. But the second thing I tell them is, every time someone asks you how you got in the field, show them, help them, mentor them. That's like, it's just, let's grow the community. Let's make it a better place. There's enough jobs for all of us, right?
That's amazing.
Yes.
So hackredcon.com, right?
Absolutely.
Connect with you on LinkedIn, follow you on Twitter, start sharing all the information, send you content, help build content libraries, training libraries. All right, let's do this.
Awesome.
Definitely. Yeah. Any resources you guys have, solid GitHubs. We just stumbled across, I can't remember the author, but an amazing OSINT tool that we just discovered. So any kind of resources that we could put out to the community, please help us build that. And then, if there's anything else that we can do, to contribute back to the community that everybody here in the community needs, please reach out to us. we're all in on it. So yeah.
Just sharing the love. That's all we want from everybody.
Yeah. Are you videoing the talks and the training, and you'll open source those?
Yeah,
Yes.
so we're gonna record all the
Absolutely awesome.
talks, all the trainings across the board. We're not set up right now live just because budget and capability and staff and all that. But our goal is immediately when we're finished to cut it up and put it out there. And then there's one other thing too I want to throw out there about the blog. So the podcast. We're creating a podcast. It's actually the plans here. The first series is going to be how did you get into cyber? And basically, one of the most valuable things that we think we can do is all of us to tell our story.
You relate to somebody, someone will hear it, and you might just be like, you know what, I can do it. Like I myself, I'm a college dropout, didn't know what I was going to do in my life. I was doing computer repair and pizza delivery for several years, became a personal trainer, stumbled into cybersecurity, and here, went from making $25,000 a year to my first job just over 90, second over 110. The community, it's unbelievable. Like everyone, I should be a pizza delivery driver or working at a fast food restaurant, and anybody can do it. Everyone needs to hear everyone else's stories and know that they can do it too.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Dan and Zach, thank you so much for sharing all the information about Hack RedCon. I encourage everyone to attend hackredcon.com. Is it .com? Did I say that right? I said it right.
Yep.
Dan and Zach, thank you so much.
You guys,
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate everything you've done.
Great luck with the conference. Fantastic. Now we've got some
That's
news
really cool.
to discuss. That is really
That
cool.
is awesome.
Yep. And Zach and Dan, are you sticking around for the news?
Oh yeah, you guys are welcome to stick around. Sorry.
You don't
I
have
know
to.
you got-
no
they got,
pressure.
like-
No
they got,
pressure.
like,
But
plans.
you
They
got
like a lot of things to do.
Yeah, like you should start checking things off of those whiteboards.
Yeah.
There's not enough crossed
We like
out,
the
right?
10th iteration of
It's
them.
they keep every time we cross them off, I erase the damn thing and have to refill it up. So.
see, when Paul asked about your backgrounds at the beginning of the segment, he actually meant the whiteboards,
Right.
not like
Walk us through the
kidding.
project plan.
I'm kidding.
But, yeah, I'm sorry. You guys are welcome to stick around, or if you have to drop, I totally understand. So it's up to you.
No.
So,
Yeah.
no.
All right. You
And,
gotta stick
and
around.
don't forget to change the Wi-Fi password on the board behind you.
That's right.
I thought it was- oh shit!
I love Red Sear. I love High Red.
Nice. All right, we covered stories. Tyler's story number 1.
We did. Where do we want to go from here?
Oh,
I guess we got to talk about DirtyCred.
and dirty pipes.
Dirty
Dirty-
pipes.
Well, Dirty Pipe is the old one.
Right.
DirtyCred is the new one.
It's the even nastier.
It is there's even a graphic.
Oh,
Like
whoa.
you know the graphic that you see where like you get the free version of the product, then you get the pro version of the product, and then you get the enterprise version of the product.
Uh-huh.
And like you get like the free one, the price is free. The pro one is like, $99 a month, and the enterprise is like, call us. And you're like, wow, that must be like really expensive.
Yeah, if you can't list the price on the website, you can't afford it.
Right. I can't afford that.
Yeah.
I have to get all kinds of approval. It would be terrible. So they do the same thing with Dirty Pipe and DirtyCred. So like generic exploitation method, like Dirty Pipe, there's an X, and DirtyCred, there's a check mark. So it was pretty cool. Like, oh, I guess I can afford DirtyCred because it's free because it was open vulnerability and exploit that they put out there. I was not able to digest all of the nitty gritty details about it. It is a kernel exploitation that in general swaps unprivileged kernel credentials with privileged ones to escalate privilege.
Huh.
It may sound like an oversimplification, but you think about all of the ways that the Linux kernel manages privilege, there's a lot of different... And one of the
Sure.
things I was clicking on through here, like in the advisory, and then... So it says unprivileged kernel credentials. And kernel credentials is a link to kernel.org where they discuss kernel credentials. And they start listing out the various types. Like obviously the objects like files and sockets, object ownership. But then they got into the user ID, Linux capabilities, secure bits, keys and key rings, LSM, AF key, like all of these are facilities inside of the kernel.
For authentication.
That it goes beyond just the user level assignment and PAM. It goes into like, I want to give you some privileges that are normally reserved for the root user, but you are not the root user. You're a process or you're a regular user, and I'm therefore going to grant you these privileges so you can do what you need to do. So it sounds like it's some abuse of that inside, which we've seen some of that, right, in a lot of different areas. One of them being Docker containers in privilege escalation there.
They must have made a typo in this article, because it says the vulnerability allows a local privileged attacker to crash the system to gain privilege. I'm like, wait a minute, I got privilege.
Here we are talking about privilege again, right?
Yeah, it's like,
I think, but you have, I guess,
multiple layers of privilege.
I look at it.
Yeah, what
if I
privilege do you have, right?
If I don't have a user account, I have zero privileges, right?
Right.
But I don't have an account, so I don't like privilege doesn't apply to me yet because I don't have an account, and that's where I pick on Intel for saying like it's just a privilege escalation if I go from an unauthenticated user to an authenticated user. Like, no, that's authenticated bypass. That is not privilege escalation. Like, you don't have privilege unless you have some type of account on the system. And I think what they're saying, Lee, is that even like a low privileged user can gain higher level of privileges is the way I would read that. And I don't like it when it gets weird with the language. Like
that's either a language or a typo subtlety or something of the like. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's.
Yep.
I mean, what Paul said made perfect sense and aligned with what I thought the intent of the article was. But I was reading that while he was saying it, and I'm shaking my head.
Yes. And I pick on Intel, and I'm waiting for them to pick on me back.
Actually, you
probably coming up soon.
Yeah, they have more expensive lawyers than you do.
Yeah. I don't think picking on me in that sense, but
yeah.
I'm trying not to overload with firmware stuff because I feel like I've been doing that.
So let's talk about Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Why would you overload with firmware stuff? It's not like you work. Oh wait, you do work for firmware.
I work for,
Speaking of nasty, right?
Yeah.
Ching. Miss Jackson, if you're nasty. Wait, what?
So we were talking about the difference between pitch and tone and all of those things that weigh into this. But like essentially a 5400 RPM hard drive will respond to a particular frequency. Am I saying all that right? Like just
resonant frequency.
This story really resonates with me.
Yeah.
You should really go to work.
The frequency of your bad jokes is just way too damn high.
You should go to work in a mirror factory because that's a job I can totally see you doing.
There was too much bump in the trunk in this song.
I mean, if you can get the hard drive to spin slower, that hurts. But if you get it to crash, it mega hurts.
Oh my god. Why did somebody give him this gig? I mean, it must hurt at this point.
That's one way to spin the story.
Oh god.
Oh god.
I mean, that's only half of this story, though, right? Like, as much as it is comical, the research that went into this was not just the Janet Jackson piece, right? It was the ability to make memory emit different frequencies and radiate data. You could use different bands of Wi-Fi for modulation and encoding through those emissions. You could do the resignation. They had a new light one for the hard drive light using Morse code exfil.
Yep,
like we've seen all these before.
I think I just saw someone post in Discord in some fashion about the network adapter LEDs could be used for data exfil.
Yeah, I thought I had that story.
Yep.
I saw that.
Yeah, so there's all these theoretical and I mean practical. If you're like a nation state level, you're in a very secure environment. Like these are things that have to be considered as threat vectors. But for the average corporation or enterprise, there's a lot bigger fish to kind of deal with. And so getting hung up on a lot of these novelties doesn't typically help anybody from a threat risk profile for the average corporation. Now, if you're Fortune 1 or 10, maybe you do need to worry about some of this.
Yeah, but ironically, Tyler, I mean, this one, while it's not an accidental discovery, it may have been an accidental discovery. Like, let's say someone plays, the Janet Jackson video on their laptop in the presence of 5400 RPM drives from 8 or 10 years ago, and they all crash. Like, oops! Like, how did that happen? Like, how many times maybe we have some accidental death and dismemberment because of something like this? Like
That is a good question. That is kind of funny
My
to
porn
think of.
collection.
Or maybe
Taylor,
not
like,
so
what's
active.
what's the scenario where
These
I'm
things
gonna
that governments know?
I'm gonna play an album from 1989 in front of hard drives from 4 or 5 years ago?
I mean, I can think of a number of
Music is
occasions.
timeless.
When you're
Like,
old and you still have a porn collection on disc.
Music is timeless, and there are a bunch of folks that are into retro computing. I think like Axon from Kansas City area, who does a ton of retro computing stuff with like old HP Jornadas and like does amazing stuff with this some older gear. Like
You know, I've got a friend janitor who has a full rack that is a 2 terabyte storage array from EMC from like 12 years ago. He spun it up like once that I know of.
yeah, because he probably had to have a 220 outlet 3-phase put in. Yep.
For a 2 terabyte rack.
Yep.
So I was thinking of a more practical application where this might happen is that you go to a security conference where somebody are doing a CTF where people are bringing burner laptops that might be a bit older, and there's always music playing in the background, isn't there?
No, but I like the quote from the article. It says, "Few modern machines have hard disk drives, never mind drives that rotate at the unfashionably slow speed of 5,400 revolutions per minute. Also, hardly anyone listens to Janet Jackson anymore."
Right.
I guess that's my point.
The irony is
Right there.
The irony is that typical weekend Saturday and Sunday breakfast, when we have time, we sit down as a family.
listen to Janet Jackson?
No, we make big
Oh.
breakfast, and it's mommy and daddy's opportunity to introduce music. From our childhood
Right.
through our Amazon devices. And Janet Jackson has come up on more than one occasion.
Gotcha.
Yep. We're teaching them music history because that stuff's like old now.
Yeah.
Classic.
Well, that's because you're old. Never mind. Anyway.
Yep.
So,
I mean, that old Linux kernel flaw was 8 years old. Like, if we're gonna talk about old, like there's some old shit happening still.
Yep.
Still talking about CPU firmware flaws, side loading channel issues. We got all kinds of privilege escalation, like between Zoom, VMware. Like, there's a lot of privilege escalation.
Tyler, you're handing that to Paul on a platter.
I was working it.
I mean, in my research, like, I want to go back to 2017 because that was, like, in my research, the year for, like, firmware and UEFI vulnerabilities.
You say that, and
Year.
I actually found some of my research from 2015, and I was looking at there was bootkits back then.
There was.
I had code for. In fact, the Vault 7 leak had a whole bunch of the code
2012.
from Carbonk that was being used prior to 2015, and I had stolen some code from that as well back then. So it's been around for a while. Just maybe not
the
as
Vault 7 was that was the
CIA
Thunderbolt,
leak.
but you needed physical access in the first iteration of it. That goes back the furthest that I could find. You needed physical access.
So the Grasshopper loader
Yes.
that was being used was version 2.0 for the UEFI firmware piece was older than that.
Like the CIA
physical.
was like way ahead of all this firmware hacking stuff. Now you're gonna make me open my document, Tyler. I have a document.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's an Ars Technica article.
I went back and looked at it. I found a whole repo of an offline hard drive I had encrypted. I finally remembered the password. And
Was your Bitcoin wallet on there?
I did look. It was not, unfortunately, but there was some good. There was some bootkit code in there that I'd forgotten about. That was pretty cool.
I mean,
It was dark matter in 2009. Was as far back as I dated EFI stuff. Yeah, that was in Vault 7.
On the good note, Tyler, if you recover the Bitcoin wallet, I mean, you're no longer out a couple million. You're only up a couple 100,000 at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Check again at the end of the show. It might go up.
It still hurts. In fact, it probably mega hurts.
Oh god.
No, it's kilohertz at this point.
Yes, kilohertz.
Oh boy.
I guess it doesn't petabyte anymore.
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Oh, are we still talking about encrypted zip files having 2 correct passwords? I feel like
It's still a thing.
this was always a thing, where like there was did the password get like truncated? I forget all the details. Extracting a completely different password. The different password resulted in discussion which contents intact. Yeah, I forget. I forget how, but it ends up with 2 passwords, and I feel like I've seen this before.
There was some similar stuff with one of the bcrypt algorithms back in the day, and I believe it was it one of the MD5 or AES algorithms you used to encrypt. You could actually dual encrypt with different passwords.
Reading the article, Zip uses PBKDF2, which hashes the input if it's too big, and then that hash as raw bytes becomes the actual password.
So you have the
so you can pass
password
it either the
and
hash or the
right.
bytes.
Yep. So if you have the bytes and it's too long for the PBKDF2 function, it will hash it, and then you just use the PBKDF2 hash instead. So that's why.
Gotcha.
I mean,
it was a good article. Honestly, they went through some of the math that how the checksum actually worked for ASCII representation that I'd forgotten about. So it was actually pretty cool.
Sorry, and I may have misspoken in there. PBKDF2 versus SHA-1 and their application. So,
Right. But
yep. Also some HMAC collisions and so forth. So.
But too long is a password over 64 bytes. So this is not a small password that you're gonna. This is somebody trying to make a wickedly cool password.
I mean, that said, there are folks that are going to pick those kinds of passwords based on the recommendation that their agencies have given. Like, I know of organizations that have said, yeah, if you're going to create a password for a system or an administrative account, that has to be 32 characters or longer.
Yep.
And you know the easy way to get a 64-character password? Take a 32-character password and type it twice, right? Like, for double security, it's ROT26, right? No.
ROT26? Fuck. Oh, I'm going to hit you.
This was...
No, remember, ROT26 is bad, but ROT13 twice is very, very smart.
Yes.
The new air gap attack uses MEMS gyroscope ultrasonic covert channel
Good Lord.
to leak data. That was the story I was looking for. So it's dubbed Gyroscope. The adversarial model is the latest addition to a long list of acoustic, electromagnetic, optical, and thermal approaches devised by Dr. Mordecai Guri, the head of R&D in the Cybersecurity Research Center in Ben Gurion University in Israel.
Tons of stuff comes out of Ben Gurion.
Malware generates ultrasonic tones in the resonance frequencies of the MEMS gyroscope. A MEMS gyroscope is an inexpensive vibrating structure, micro-electromechanical system, MEMS gyroscopes that become widely available. They're packaged similarly to other integrated circuits and may provide either analog or digital inputs.
You already have MEMS on most systems, on phones anyway, because that's how you have the 6-axis, 3-axis or 6-axis accelerometer.
Yep.
So your phone knows when it's upside down or when it's being dropped or whatever. Those are MEMS gyroscopes and accelerometers. But so they're saying that you can build a MEMS gyroscope. Basically, it's just a really, really tiny gyroscope, and put it in a server, and malware will make it vibrate.
No, the malware generates. It doesn't say how do the inaudible frequencies produce tiny mechanical oscillations within the smartphone's gyroscope that can be demodulated into binary information. So this sounds
okay.
This is like the Great Seal listening device. This is a resonant frequency again.
Yep. So again, that gyroscope, and not having read the article, I can envision the way that we do some data exfiltration or something like with this. That the gyroscope is in fact actually determining location, and it's spitting out some data based on its 6 axes. And if you can determine those 6 axes, you might be able to determine what the device is actually doing. Like, I envision this of like, if I take my phone and my Face ID doesn't work and I have to type in my PIN, my phone is moving subtly based on the gyroscope, and that based on my hand action and location, you could potentially determine my passcode based on how my fingers are interacting with the gyroscope.
Good bloody Lord.
And I don't know that this is the attack, but this is what I would do.
So this requires that you infect the smartphones of employees working in the victim organization deployed by means of attack vector social engineering. Then, in the next phase of the kill chain, the attacker abuses established foothold to harvest sensitive information, encodes and broadcasts the information in the form of stealthy acoustic sound waves via the machine's loudspeaker. So you have to compromise the computer and the phone. And the phone, because the phone has the, like Josh was saying, the MEMS.
So does the target. The computer has to have malware on it too.
Right.
So both sides. They basically have to insert the transmitter and the receiver into the environment.
Right.
Oh God, that's weird.
I'm going with what Lee said. Yes, I think Lee is correct in that. And through the loudspeaker means you've got to play sounds or emit sounds.
Oh God, I know where this came from.
A speaker, and then the phone that you've compromised in the environment is, yeah.
I know where this came from. Facebook was doing similar things to track where you were. Not just Facebook, but various social media platforms. They would play an ultrasonic tone from your phone or your computer, and the other one would hear it, and it would it would play it from your computer, and your phone would hear it, and because your phone has GPS, they'd know where you were. Then the app would read the GPS, hear the tone, and go, "Okay, you're at home." And they would do hyperlocal advertising to your home persona rather than your work persona type of thing. Or your travel persona or whatever, that kind of hyperlocal advertising. God, that's crazy.
Oh, I think we can go even crazier. There are now video whiteboard, video teleconferencing systems that use that ultrasonic tone to talk to the client. So here we are, we got a legitimate use, right? Your clients are supposed to be talking ultrasonic in the room. Now we add the capability Josh just described on top of that as a writer. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and Lee, this has been around for a little bit. I remember seeing, maybe 5 years ago, about some of the new smart TVs that would, the television shows would have a subcarrier, so that the subcarrier would emit an ultrasonic tone, so that if you had like an iPad or something with the app open, you could get extra content on those apps based on the current scene of the show and those types of things. Director commentary, and it would link it to that. And oof.
This like resonates back to the Laserdisc era, with the extended commentary, and oh my God, it's getting ridiculous, guys.
So I'm still looking for that air gap attack that doesn't need to install anything on either side, but still. This is really cool technology. Unfortunately, it only works for about 26 inches. So, or what was it? 800 centimeters is what they said in the article. So distance is your friend, kind of like in the Tempest world.
Yep.
Did anyone read about the Zoom vulnerabilities?
I did
plural
not.
In the patches, plural.
Nope.
Patches.
Those patches.
I do know that I went to go join a Zoom call the other day, and it was I'm like, I've got 1 minute to join. Oh crap! And like Zoom had to install updates. I'm like, I'm glad you're installing updates because I heard about some of these. But no, I'm going to be late.
Wait, on Windows or Mac, does it make you install the updates?
On Mac, it makes you install the updates. You don't. Let's put it this way: in the way I have it installed, which is I think by default, whenever it starts the Zoom client as triggered from the web, it installs the updates on startup.
So on Linux, Zoom will not. It has auto updates, but it will not force the update.
Oh, I didn't get a choice.
Yeah.
You have to accept the update.
Fortunately, it's quick.
In Linux, it makes I have to go download the .deb package unless I want to install it via Snap. But I'm not a huge fan of Snap, and I don't know if Zoom is in Snap, or I want to install it via Flatpak, which usually is packaged by someone who I don't know and may or may not trust. So I'm a little hesitant about Flatpak. So it gives me a notification, and then if I click it, it takes me to Zoom's website
where you can download
where I download the deb, and then I install the deb. However, Discord forces the update.
Yep.
Even on Linux, it goes no. You're gonna go download. It makes me go download the or again.
So
in Discord,
honestly,
I can do Snap or I can do Flatpak, but I choose not to. And I'm like, no, I'll go download the deb, install it, make sure it installs properly, and then restart it. And what's weird in Discord, when it starts up after I install the apt package, it goes, oh, I'm getting more updates. So it's like, it almost gives me the update as like a hook, and then it downloads the rest of it.
Here's the signatures for your new update type of thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm guessing there.
I'm guessing, yeah.
The biggest problem that you've got, Paul, on the Discord side is that you stop and restart Discord.
Right.
Like, I never know that there's an update for Discord because I
you
think
never stop
Discord.
and-
I
right.
just think Discord's been open on my machine.
My
for
other
like
issue is I run
3.5
Linux.
months.
I
or
run
something.
Linux. And
I mean, you said it.
Because I
my
run Linux.
other issue.
Right. And because I run Linux, I have to make sure I tell people that I run Linux.
It's like CrossFit all over again.
yes.
Well, I don't know. The update
my
that gets
Linux.
me is when Slack wants an update and it says enter your password to install a helper, and I'm like, I don't want to. Oh wait, that's an update, not actually adding a helper.
It's a helper to install the update.
But now back to Zoom. So Patrick Wardle presents at Black Hat 2 macOS Zoom client vulnerabilities, gives them credit for patching them, but then another researcher whose name I can't pronounce, offensive security content developer Saspa Fitzel tweeted that it was able to bypass the patch, forcing Zoom to release yet a third patch to fully protect users against this issue.
Interesting. I mean, that's kind of awesome.
I mean, good for Zoom for sticking with it and making sure that they patch it, but it kind of begs the issue.
Good for taking another tester to hold them accountable that their patch actually did something and didn't create more issues. And then kudos to Zoom for patching it yet again.
Right. Keep on patching.
Yep. Keep on keeping
This
on.
was specific to the Mac version.
It is only the Mac version, Lee, yes.
And it is not available in the auto update function. So no matter how many times you quit and restarted, at least when I last looked, it wasn't coming down. You had to go check for updates and then tell it to put it in.
Interesting.
Oof. Interesting. I will make note of that.
My story number 3, I think, is an interesting segue from this, where ZDI is cutting the disclosure time over poor quality patches. And I'm kind of... All right, so am I not the only one that's kind of confused by this?
Explain what this means.
Please.
So for failed patches, ZDI will give vendors 30 days to address the flaw if it's critical, the patch is easily circumvented, and if the exploit is expected. And apparently that's less time than before.
Wait, so like in the case of the Zoom thing,
they would give them less time.
Zoom had a patch. It didn't fix the actual problem, or it introduced more problems. There was a new exploit released, and it was sold to ZDI.
No. Well, hypothetically, it could be sold to ZDI. In that case, it was not.
It's just forcing the vendors to do a better job on first release. Like if it's critical, all hands on deck. Don't release some half-ass patch. Otherwise, you have only 30 days, so we're going to drop it after that.
So
I mean, I guess both sides of that. That's a double-edged sword. Like, you're
agree.
a lot of people.
Their standard disclosure timeline gives software vendors 120 days to release a patch, but it's introducing shorter timelines for failed patches. So they're like, if you don't get the patch right in the first time for 120 days or whatever it is,
okay.
Now,
that makes sense.
We're escalating. Like, make sure you use that time to test it and make sure that it actually works.
So
I think that's what's happening
from a
here.
timeline perspective, you have 120 days. You fail, you get 30 more at your second try.
Right.
Is that what it's saying?
Right.
As opposed to another 120 days.
Got it.
Yeah, so do a good job in the first 120.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
I actually agree with that more.
Yeah.
Do it fast and right, not slow and wrong.
Right.
But it's also saying it depends on the priority of the vulnerability too, right? Because the next line says vendors will have 60 days to address critical and high severity. Right? So there's a 30-day window for one classification,
how hard it is
60
to
for another.
And 90 for
is
another.
also part of it.
90 days
90
for,
yeah, I'm
for
looking
all
down
the
now, 90
vulnerabilities
for
below
another.
these severity
Below those
ratings if
severity
there's no
ratings. Yep.
imminent threat. Yeah.
Right. If you make a stupid vulnerability that anybody can hack, they're only going to give you 30 days. But if you got one that's there but kind of hard to do, you might get as much as 90 days, depending.
Right.
But don't screw your patch up the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
Quality on the first go.
Quality on the first go.
Yep.
Speaking
I'd
of...
love to...
Go ahead, Lee.
So I was flashing back. There was an article I read the other day about Java deserialization bugs. We've heard about those for years. But the kicker to me that stuck is that it takes an average of 6 years for them to be addressed. I think this timeline's better than 6 years.
Yeah, just a smidge.
Yeah.
What do we do
6 years?
Larry, did you have a segue?
6 years.
I don't want to...
No, it's okay. Keep going.
So what do we do with Microsoft when the patch is, it's not really a patch. I mean, I guess it is. It's an update to the DBX revocation list.
Okay. Yep.
So just full disclosure, this is a direct result of research performed at Eclipsium that found vulnerabilities in 3 different bootloaders. Talked about it on a previous show, right? And we talked about on that show, Tyler and I interviewed Mickey and Jesse. We talked about on that show how that the fix is really to, it's not really a change of software, it's an update to a revocation list. What it's saying is that if that particular bootloader was signed by this key and this resulting hash now is in the revocation list, that your system should not boot with that bootloader because it has known vulnerabilities that attackers can use to circumvent the secure boot process. So Microsoft has to push out an update
to the list,
to the revocation list. They did that in KB 5012170. The problem with that is it's causing 2 different issues.
One is a hex 800 F0922 error.
That is correct.
Okay.
And the other,
very descriptive.
The other that I think this article may reference is this triggering Bitlocker recovery.
What?
So now imagine. Now imagine
the revocation list is triggering BitLocker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tyler, can you? I am not as well versed on that details of that as Tyler, I believe, is.
Because BitLocker and the BitLocker keys are tied to your secure boot volume, right? And that secure boot key exchange and what is actually verifying and validating the boot process for Windows, that key has to actually be in the TPM that then gets pushed through the bootlocker on pre-boot in order to unlock the hard drive so that your init can happen and your kernel can load. Because there's a revocation and now the secure boot is not able to do that properly and you're getting an error. So BitLocker is now basically putting itself to recovery so that you can boot the OS and unlock the hard drive. The key is not getting passed through the OS because that key has been invalidated through the secure boot process.
So if your key is bad, then BitLocker gets triggered.
BitLocker's key is associated in the TPM to secure boot. So when secure boot boots, as part of that boot function, it passes the key through to unlock your hard drive via the BitLocker. So that key, because secure boot is broken, the key that's actually the revocation, the DBX database that handles the keys that unlock and provide integrity for secure boot, because those keys are invalidated on the DBX.
The DBX is the hashes of the key.
The hashes of them, yes. That's getting passed, and that's making BitLocker fail because secure boot is failing.
So it's not just any random key is put on the revocation list. It's if the key that you're actively using for your secure boot system.
Well, each key for each hard drive is going to be different, right? Like it's the certificate for the secure boot. There's 3 separate DBX hashes that have been revocated, but because of that, secure boot does not have the ability to successfully boot because it's loading and checking each one of those as part of its DBX. That's part of the whole function, and so it's not able to leverage secure boot at all, and so your BitLocker's not able to unlock it all. You can't actually unlock your hard drive.
You know what's funny? I was running Eclipsium's product, and it was telling me my revocation lists were out of date. Before, like in various stages of when this was public, and I went to the team. I'm like, "Did you guys push an update to the product?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, that's why." So our product was going, your DBX is out of date because our researchers found this issue, but like this whole thing hadn't.
No one knows.
Yeah, no one really knew, but like our customers were protected because we knew about that. And
you were working on this when we were at Mr. J's a few months ago, or a couple months ago.
Yeah,
that's what you were working.
And I couldn't talk about it. Right.
Because
I
remember this conversation.
We couldn't publish the show because August 11th was legit, like midnight when the clock turned over. That was the first point at which we could actually talk about this because DEF CON. Microsoft had like already fixed it, and even days before had actually pushed out this KB. So Microsoft had known about it for a long. I won't go into the disclosure timeline, but they'd known about it, right? And so August 11th was the first time we could actually talk about it publicly. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So, but now run into this scenario through your head. You've got 50,000 or more Windows machines in your environment. And like secure boot's important to protect you against malware that's going to try and attack the UEFI booting process, which there's, I mean, one of the things I'm working on is a list of this malware and researching it, right? It's pretty scary. You want to push it out, but now you're going to send, I don't know, what a percentage of those into Bitlocker Recovery?
I'm sitting there from a managed service provider perspective.
Yeah, you're going to push it out to everyone?
Fucking shit.
Do you want everyone
that's gonna
calling
cause
your help
extreme
desk?
chaos.
I mean, we had it here in the
our
studio.
knock is going to go off the wall.
Yeah, we had it here in the studio. We had one system that went into Bitlocker Recovery for I don't know what reason, right? Hopefully it wasn't malware. Now that we're talking through this, right? But it goes into Bitlocker Recovery, and none of us could find the recovery key. Like we logged into the various Microsoft accounts that would be able to pull the recovery key, and no one could find it, and we had to call the help.
If only you were using Intune, you could have saved the recovery key in the Active Directory
in AD.
In AD. Yeah.
I think we are using
You're not
Intune,
using AD?
but we still had to create a ticket with the help desk because we couldn't fix it ourselves. But now you don't want to push this out to tens of thousands and have all people calling the help desk, which is
Jesus.
No.
crazy.
This is fascinating. It's like when the system's designed to protect you, screw with you. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I think in the interview, I definitely talked about it with Mickey and Jesse when we were releasing the blog post that talked about their research. In that, if you are running one of these bootloaders that is in the revocation list, and you update your revocation list, your system is not going to boot. And since you have one of these bootloaders, now you have to do two things. One, you got to update your revocation list. Two, you got to put the new bootloader on there that doesn't have the vulnerability, and you have to do all of this without bricking the system. So
and without an OS,
and make sure that you have, if you set a BIOS password, that you can get into your BIOS password to disable secure boot, so that you're like, let's say you pushed out the revocation list, and secure boot goes, no, I can't boot because the revocation list tells me it's wrong, and you forget your BIOS password, or and there's other scenarios in there. I mean, there's other fallbacks.
Then you're cracking open the system and you're downloading your BIOS SPI memory. And
correct. Better hope you have your spy programmer handy.
I really don't remember any of these kind of problems on my 2005 laptop with the 5400 RPM disk.
Miss Janet, if you're nasty. Miss Jackson, if you're nasty. Right? Yeah.
Was it 2011, 2012? I think Secure Boot was introduced. So yeah, I mean, if you got older, if you're pre 2006, you don't have ME either.
I'm sorry, I just had to channel all the hoarders in the room.
Right.
The ones that have closets full of old crap they pull out when really, and which then kills the justification.
It's not crap, it's vintage. It's vintage. It's vintage.
I didn't have this problem. I didn't have this problem when I booted up Paul's vintage C64.
Right. Of course, if you have those older systems, you probably are missing BIOS write protections or have an MBR, which puts you in
all different.
Yeah, it's totally different scenario. But along these lines, Microsoft Pluton is their security chip that will not let Linux on the Lenovo Z13 and Z16. This is something Matthew Garrett, who's done a lot of evangelism for firmware security in open source in this particular realm, right? Basically, what Matthew's discovered is it means that given the default firmware configuration on these Lenovo laptops, nothing other than Windows will boot. So it means you can't put a USB drive in and boot Linux. It also means you won't be able to boot from any third-party external peripherals that are plugged in via Thunderbolt, right? He says there is no security benefit to this.
There's also
a little bit of security benefit to this.
I mean, I agree that there's a security benefit. There's also a good possibility that Microsoft could see some sort of anti-competitive lawsuits going on here.
Yeah,
remember when IE came bundled with your operating system?
Right.
And remember when you can only install IE? Or remember when you can only install Windows?
And there has to be
37 floppies.
Now, Matthew hasn't published a blog post on it yet. On this, I think there are some previous ones, but I think this is maybe coming from communications or Twitter or whatever. But the way I read this originally was you could go in and enable third-party CA, and then that would allow your UEFI to trust the certificates that are issued to the Linux shim to allow secure boot to happen if you're running Linux.
Yep.
But what Lenovo is the first case that we've seen where third-party CA trust is disabled by default, which means you get your Lenovo laptop, you install Linux on it, and secure boot's enabled in your BIOS. It ain't going to boot Linux because it doesn't have the right certificate trust list to go, oh, I trust basically the hash of the key that's used to sign shim by Microsoft.
Interesting.
Now, is this on only 2 models of the Lenovo?
I'm not.
They
This is
called out the
first time-
Z13 and the Z16.
I think it's newer models are getting this. So this is like where they're going is disabling third-party CA support. In that case, I don't get the security. This is totally now you're talking physical security. Because if I have access to the BIOS, I can go enable or disable it, right?
Yep.
The purpose in what you've heard Mickey and Jesse talk about, right? The secure boot's not a physical protection. Secure boot is preventing software from modifying other software involved in the boot process to circumvent what you believe is a trusted chain of the software that's booting up your system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Don't Xboxes have that same type of scenario where you can't boot from any? Like, don't they have that same protection?
That's my understanding.
I thought Xboxes were prected like that. Like, you can't.
So secure boot is enabled in router firmware switches. A lot of ARM systems, even MIPS systems have secure boot code if it's integrated into the hardware. So yeah, I would not be surprised if Xbox. In fact, I'm almost positive you're right. Xbox does have secure boot.
Yeah.
Maybe a different cert chain because of it's a Microsoft product, just like the Surface Books, but maybe not.
I mean, you think about all the way back to the original Xbox One, where they had the mod chips that would effectively get around all of the signing mechanisms by disabling it, putting your own stuff in.
Yep,
So.
which could be just a different BIOS.
Yep, and the what we talked about on the Starlink hacks last week.
Oh, you guys talked about that?
Same sort of thing. It's like an original Xbox mod chip that effectively disables the legitimate and. I substitute your reality for my own type of deal, right? You put your own stuff in instead of the legitimate one with an add-on.
Craziness.
So, Paul, if I may, a completely wild, non-really good segue. Speaking of old, did you see the story about Ars Technical article for hold on, where's the name?
Brian Kernigan?
Yeah, Brian Kernigan. There we go.
Oh, Kernigan and Richie?
The K in AWK.
Yeah.
Kernigan.
Yeah.
AWK. Yeah, he's 80 years old.
Wow.
And
they invented Unix or had a hand in that, right? Like, it's more, we think of them as AWK and the C programming language book, right? Famously. But the story goes even deeper than that. Like, they helped develop some of the first versions of Unix, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He helped create 4 Unix at Bell Labs in 1977, which is the year I was born.
But this summer, he submitted.
You're that young?
This summer, he submitted a couple hundred lines of code that could add Unicode support for AWK.
Get out.
But the crazy part is that he has to figure out how to navigate GitHub to be able to do a submission.
Somehow that's harder than adding Unicode support into AWK.
Yep, couple hundred lines.
Carnegie. We're right there with you, Brian, man. We're right there with you.
And it needs more testing. To quote, I have tested this a fair amount, but clearly more tests are needed. Kerrigan wrote an email posted late May as a kind of a pseudo commit on the One True Awk repo by longtime maintainer Arnold Robbins. Once I figure out how, I will try to submit a pull request. I wish I understood Git better, but in spite of your help, I still don't have a proper understanding, so this may take a while.
Someone get poor Brian an intern that can do his Git commits.
But one, I think it's amazing about the whole. I haven't figured out Git commits and Git pulls and all of this stuff yet. But at 80, he's still committing code to awk, a tool that he wrote decades ago.
It's amazing. I think it was Malicious Life. I believe it was Malicious Life podcast talked about, I think it was it Brian Kernighan that gave a presentation about talking about one of the first instances of supply chain in login.c. There's a famous paper that I wish I had bookmarked it or something, because now I want to go back and read the paper. I wonder if it's under special interviews. Yeah, but he gave oh god, I can't find it. But anyway, I think it was that that I was pulling from. Yeah. Anyway.
Yep.
I'll find it maybe for next time.
Okay. In any case, Lee, did you have a comment there? Or?
I was going to say, the thing that caught me on this article, although the awk and the Git obviously resonates, but he was the K in the Carnegie and Ritchie C programming language book that at least I used a lot, even though it's from '78. In fact, when I was cleaning out the gunk in my old office, it's two of the books I accessed were the two in the screenshot there. I don't know if I should admit that publicly.
I'm sorry.
The question is, Lee, did you keep it when you cleaned it out?
No, I got rid of it. It was just so old and so out of. Although I did use it to teach myself how to program in C. I got to admit that. I
think a lot of us older folks used that book to teach ourselves C, but it was Ken Thompson's presentation presented in the Journal of Communications of the ACM, volume 27, number 8, in August 1984, in a paper entitled Reflections on Trusting Trust, where he not only backdoored login.c, but he backdoored the compiler. But then he talked about backdooring the compiler they used to compile the compiler. So like no matter what you did, it was kind of similar. Now that I think about it, Tyler, right? It's similar to how attackers hook UEFI to hook the loader, to hook the bootloader, to hook the kernel. It's kind of what he was talking about. Basically, you hook
it's like
the
Inception.
compiler, right? That compiles the compiler that hooks that. If you compile login.c, put your backdoor in there.
Yeah, it's like Inception. You got to spin the top to see whether you're dreaming or not, and how many levels deep you are.
And he published that paper in August of 1984.
I'm still waiting for the day when someone backdoors Visual Studio compilers and actually every compiled code ends up with something.
You're waiting for the day, Tyler. That you imply that it hasn't already happened.
I don't know.
Right. And I know, Tyler, you're normally a pretty paranoid and doomsday kind of guy, but like I would have expected that from you, right? I can't wait for the day. No, it's already happened, my man. You just don't know about it.
The ominous music
those post-build routines are. Yeah, those post-build routines are ones that many places have to worry about, and we backdoored post-build routines a lot. But the source code that actually compiles the compiler software that's a pretty scary supply chain attack right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we haven't talked about Twitter.
I was just going to say, Paul, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, the one that was on national news today.
Right. Did it get national news?
It did. It was on all the national news this morning, including the local news here, Channel 10.
Now, a previous guest on the show not too long ago, Joseph Menn, was the one. I'm told CNN also broke the story as well, but Washington Post. I mean, we love Joseph, so I want to give him credit. I want to give him all the credit, but I heard another source that was also CNN. But Joseph Menn broke the story on the Washington Post, and I was following him on Facebook. He was posting it, and it made front page. Is that still a thing?
It is. Above the fold, front page, like there, front
website?
And center on the website.
On the website?
I mean, I think that's all synonymous. Like,
yeah. Oh, and you have the CNN article.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the basis for the article was that former Twitter executive Peter Zetko, aka Mudge, who was chief security officer?
No, head of security.
Head of security.
Chief security officer was the other person whose name I can't remember.
And then was promoted to CEO.
No. Oh, was it she?
She,
who was that? Who was that?
Names.
Yeah,
In any case, Mudge has invoked Whistleblower Act stuff. So Jack Dorsey stepped down and allowed Mudge's former boss to take the CEO role.
Rinky Sethi.
Yes.
Yes.
And
so she was promoted to... No, she's the current CISO at Bill.com. But so the way that Patrick Gray from Risky Business was, he covered this in his news site. We did a great job. The way he described it was Rinky was hired as chief security officer. Mudge was hired as head of security at the same time.
Got it.
Their responsibilities had some pretty serious overlap.
and probably opposing
could be.
Output.
Could be. And this was at a time when Twitter had a hack. They had some reason to hire.
Federal Trade Commission was also involved.
FTC, So Jack wants to spend time on a beach in Thailand meditating. So he hires Rinky and Mudge to go, you got to fix this security problem. And from what Patrick was describing, and I think I heard a similar kind of thing, like Jack wasn't much of a boss. Like, again, he was on some beach in Thailand, you know, doing some kind of meditation thing. And Mudge had only met with him like 6 times in the whole tenure that Mudge worked there. Like, basically, Jack Dorsey, from what I've heard, I don't know if any of this is true, but I can see it playing out this way. Like, didn't provide them guidance and separation of duties and give them much direction at all. He was kind of just like, go
fix the thing.
Go do security thing. And there's other people on Twitter going, well, I've got security stuff to do. And there was a lot of other people on Twitter who were like, screw that security thing. From what I've heard as well, like, we need to do all this stuff, and screw security gets in the way of my job.
Yep.
So, like, the organization, pretty broken when it comes to security. Is kind of what I've gathered from what people said.
So, like, from what Mudge was describing in his whistleblower disclosure and so forth, was that he doesn't believe that they're complying with any of the Federal Trade Commission's guidance and or requirements. And that the organization, in the implementation of, and I'm going to say security basics, is a complete shit show. In that there are individuals in the organization in roles that have privileges within the production environment.
A lot of people like that
have access roles that far exceed what they actually need to do.
Correct.
And it was like basically everybody's a domain admin in the environment.
Right. That's what I got. There's a lot of people have access to a lot of the infrastructure.
And like critical things that, you know, could delete tweets and potentially make folks not see each other.
But like as we well know, it's hard to take...
Did you see the build process?
Oh,
no.
Well, that's a separate issue. But I just want to say, as we well know, it is much harder to take away privilege than it is to grant. Once you give those privileges, that's now in that person's workflow and also kind of like part of their ego. Like, oh, I work for Twitter and I have access to all these things. Like,
but,
you know.
But I mean, in some of those cases, and I'm speculating here, like we think about back to one of the more recent hacks where some of the support folks were social engineered. Right, and they got access to the production. Those attackers got access to the production environment. I'd argue that maybe those folks, those support engineers, didn't need to have access to what they had access to, and probably never used them.
Right, dude. Okay, let's bring in access for just a minute.
Yeah,
because the developers at Twitter, every single one of them had full source code on their laptops. They were building on their laptops. And they're then committing from their laptop to the main repository. Why the fuck are they doing that?
Because that's the way they've always done it, Josh.
But here's the thing that got me, and that I'm looking at it from, you know, an executive liability perspective, right? In the article, it says the CTO, who ended up taking over as the CEO of the organization, instructed Mr. Zatko to give a board report, verbally not written, and forced them to redact information from the delivery of that report. That's negligence. And my understanding is that this whistleblower is going to Congress. And if that's documented, That is negligence upon the executive team. That's huge.
Gross.
And
Gross negligence.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And a couple of things to sort of tangent to that, and I've got two tangents, so I apologize.
I've got tangents too.
One, you put Mudge in front of Congress. He knows what to expect. He's been there before. And two, he probably has pretty good rapport with a number of the folks that he's going to be testifying in front of because he's made those connections through DARPA.
Correct.
Yep.
Two, one of the other things about the redacting and those types of things, one of the things that I saw in one of the articles that Twitter says they've had pen tests done by independent third parties. And what Mudge claims is that those independent third parties were asked to change the language of the report to reduce its effectiveness.
Yes.
And I gotta say,
Yes.
there's all sorts of levels here in which you can do that. But having had a penetration testing firm, specifically in Guardians, for the last 9 years, and someone comes back to us and say, can you modify the report not to include that finding?
What do you say to them?
Nope.
The answer is fuck no.
Big F you. Right.
We 100%. We fixed it. Great. You fixed it. We'll do a retest to confirm that,
Yes.
but it's going in the report because we found it, and we would be negligent
Yeah, that's
for
that's
not
documentation
exactly
of
it.
what you observed.
Yep.
Correct.
100%.
Now, that said, could we have a discussion to understand your business process better to maybe reduce the
risk level.
risk level?
Yep.
The
100%.
severity?
Severity. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Will we be willing to change the language to more accurately reflect the overall impact of what we found? Yes. Of
course.
But are we not going to say something because no, we didn't find that, or are we going to give you
We're
a
not gonna
letter,
say-
or we're going to give you a letter of attestation that says no, everything's good? No,
No.
we're going to give you a letter of attestation that says you fucked up here, here, here.
Like Section 7,
but on that
Part
same
1 is
token,
not going to be like all of a sudden removed, and we're going to readjust all the numbers of all of our findings.
But
right?
as a process, wouldn't you have the original draft findings? Then you'd save a modified draft. Like you'd be able to go all the way back to the original findings,
agreed.
show the modifications all the way through, because we would perform the original assessment, have those results.
Yep.
If the company came back and said, "We want you to relook at this, maybe understand our business process," we would save a new version
Correct.
of that
Yep.
as the updated findings,
or an addendum.
or an addendum,
Yep.
something,
or whatever platform
Supplementary.
or
Right.
whatever platform you're using to do all of the document revision tracking.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
So this could be a ball of yarn that they pull at, and there could be liability to the executive team at Twitter. There could be liability on the third parties that they use to do the testing. Think about how deep this could go.
Right, because I was just going to say, it's obviously not Larry's first rodeo in this experience,
right.
Larry,
Right.
and many of us have been doing it for a long time, right? You probably have language already in your contracts as a pen test firm to go, like, if you ask us to do that, we're not going to do that. And here's what we'll do if this situation arises, Larry, to your point, which I love, right? Because it's not just a binary 0-1. Like,
hell
we're
no.
never going to modify a report. Like,
Just
no,
go
that's not
forward.
what we're saying. Like, we know because we've experienced this before. We've dealt with this. We've talked about it as penetration testers. We've all gotten together and sat around tables and talked about what the standards should be and what we should all do in these situations. What our legal contract. We've collaborated on this as pen testers, right? I've been in some of these conversations, right? This is not a new thing, and there isn't a standard or best practice that says you should redact or remove information about findings, right? Larry outlined the best way to deal with that situation.
Absolutely, 100%.
And that said, a couple of other things here. If those reports are ever released from Twitter in support of any of their arguments or anything, and it has the name of the company that performed those penetration tests, don't immediately crucify them.
No,
Because there may have been some of that discussion, and
People
depending
could be lying on the internet.
exactly depending on the way the reports
It's a new
were
thing.
you're also talking potentially forensic information about the modifications and so forth, depending on the method in which the report was delivered to the customer.
And the spin of the report, the phrasing of the report.
Do you deliver a word? Do you deliver a Word document of your pen test report to your customer?
No, PDF everything.
Hell no.
Negative.
Yeah, your PDF, which are still potentially modifiable,
Right.
but
PDFA.
like
and you hash the PDF.
But
No,
Mudge-
PFA is the
Plex
archive
Track is a
version,
great
which can't be
platform for that,
modified.
actually.
Yes, they are.
We had to plug a vendor in that space. They're awesome at that.
But one, don't crucify them.
No.
And two, the other one too is that I have an interesting relationship with Mudge, full disclosure, and not like that. But
He's cute.
he's arguably, in my mind, one of the folks in the industry that is absolutely credible. Despite any of his previous activities, we all grow up. But in the years from when I know him from DARPA, absolutely credible, honorable, great intentions. If we think about that, we think about back to the history and how I know Mudge.
Sure, but I want to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And I want to preface this with, I'm on the side of Mudge. Like, I've
Yep.
been in this community and industry for a long time. I'm on the side of Mudge. And I knew all of us would be on the side of Mudge. But I want to take the other side just for argument's sake. And again,
Yep.
Mudge, dude,
But-
I'm with you. Like, I'm on your side.
Yeah,
man. But like, let's just say, purpose of argument, let's just say I wasn't.
Let's say Elon dropped him $10 million to go whistleblower act.
No, I don't
So
want
we-
to say
so-
that.
so we
No,
could get-
that isn't even where I would go. But I want something more realistic. I want, let me put myself in the situation, and I'll use Larry as an example. A large social media company hires Larry as a chief security officer and Paul as head of security, and gives us similar responsibilities. Even the fact that Larry and I are really good friends, that is gonna suck for both of us, right?
Yep.
And probably gonna suck more for me because Larry probably carries a higher title. Like, I think Rinky had a higher title perhaps than Mudge in that situation. Like, already that's going to be a sucky situation. And then let's say, like, my boss doesn't give me much direction, and I'm in all of these fucking shitstorms at this large
Yeah,
social media company.
at the same
I'm just saying,
time-
but hold on, I'm just saying, I may have a grudge. I may be like, you know what? I'm going to do some whistleblower stuff because I'm kind of ticked off.
Yeah. Now, on the converse to that, thinking about Mudge's perspective, probably not pissed off. If you look at his track record and you look about what he's done and went and testified before Congress and basically say, we can take down the internet in 3 minutes.
No, I'm not saying that.
Let me finish. That you think about his honor and his duty to his country. That, like, he could be a total badass and take the internet down, but said, no, we're here in Congress to say we could take the internet down. Like, you guys need to fix this thing. And looking at Twitter as a platform that could be detrimental to national security and saying, I have to do the right thing to fix, to help, to prevent bad things from happening, and going and doing all this type of stuff. Look at his track record about what he's done to be a patriot.
And that's my perspective too, right? Because you both could have overlap in your responsibility, but that doesn't negate the fact that the higher level executive, the CTO / future CEO, told you guys, shut the hell up and don't tell the board of directors what's really going on.
Because that's
what happened.
But that person's not going to get a promotion to CEO if there's a shitstorm with security.
Yep.
And that person
That's
definitely
the
has
higher
an incentive.
issue, right?
Right.
The person that
So
you
I'm gonna
both
say-
report to is the puppet master. And saying,
Well, stop, Jason. Wait, this is a really important point. I'm actually in an argument on Twitter with a guy named Wayne Sadin.
Oh, God, there's your first problem. You're in an argument in the internet.
On Twitter, where
Well,
it's
I
really
mean-
just a bunch of monkeys flinging poo, and ironic that we're talking about
Twitter.
Exactly.
We're talking about
the,
Twitter.
But we
the
will let you
discussion we're
continue.
having is where does the CISO report? And I was just dealing with a company where the CISO was reporting to the CTO, who was reporting to the CIO, who was reporting to the CEO. That's not a joke.
yep.
Oof.
That's your first problem. Okay. And, there have been studies done. Excuse me. And the CISO is most successful when they report to the CEO directly, or when they report to a steering committee on the board, or when they report to the CFO, weirdly enough.
Yes, finance. I mean, that was one of the problems that I ran into in a previous role, that I reported to the CTO as effective CSO, and the chief technologies officer's responsibility in this organization was to keep everything up, perfect, running perfectly 24 hours a day.
Uptime and performance.
Yeah, uptime and
That's it.
performance.
Yeah, but
when my job was to say, no, you got to take this shit down and patch it, like now.
Did Rinky report to the CTO and Mudge report to Jack Dorsey?
I don't
It
know.
doesn't say, but what it does say is that the CTO was responsible for saying, don't report this to the board.
That's interesting.
So basically, I agree with you 100%, Jason. I'm going to tell you that. The other thing, by the way, I just want to bring up one piece of his background. Do you remember Mudge running the Cyber Fast Track program?
Yes.
He gave up
Yes, I do.
massive amounts of money to be a CISO or even a CEO at various different companies for I think it was 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Run a program, 3 or 4 years, to run a program at DARPA that effectively advanced our industry and our ability in our industry to access government programs, and for them to realize you don't have to go through Raytheon or Lockheed Martin to get actual technical expertise. There's a lot of technical expertise that you can get for $100,000, $200,000. Doesn't have to be $50 billion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm still gonna play and I love Mudge, and I'm on the side of Mudge, but I'm still gonna play devil's advocate and say, just because I held a previous role and did a lot of stuff doesn't make me less pissed off about what happened to me at Twitter.
But do you think that someone who would whistleblow to Congress wouldn't be bringing their A game to the table? Someone of that caliber, someone who has that background and respected in the industry. Do you think they go to Congress with no A game?
I'm just saying, here we all are talking about Mudge too. I know. I'm just that's regurgitating what other people are saying. It's not my view or belief, and people are probably going to pull that clip out of context and like whatever, right? But like we have to explore all sides of it, right?
At the end of the day.
So hold on, my goal is that we explore these things.
Yep.
And you guys are doing a great job of squashing it, going, no, Paul, that's not the case, and that's the reason
I'm saying the risk is high for him to go to Congress, not have his A game, and ruin his reputation for the entirety of his career and his legacy.
I don't think
that's a big deal.
And he's got a big legacy.
You gotta risk that.
I don't think he's exaggerating or making claims that aren't true, because we've also have other sources. I mean, Davi was also talking about his experiences with Twitter, and I gave Davi, I'm like, dude, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it. Like, that's not what we do here. But if you want to share whatever you want to share, totally cool. And Davi shared what he was comfortable with, right? And we've heard other people talk about things that have happened at Twitter. We have public. It's called we have breach disclosures that have happened.
It's called the unfollow bug for whatever reason, right?
Right. So there's,
Davi's point.
We have all that information out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, Twitter has not exemplified, I think, great security from what we've all heard. It fits the narrative. So therefore, I don't think Mudge is exaggerating anything in this scenario.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that when people go, oh, Mudge is doing it for this, that, or the other thing, that they've heard all of the different facets, on the show, and not just
sure,
rah, we're all behind Mudge.
There's two sides of every story, but
no. Screw that noise. Screw that noise. If Mudge is about as good as it gets.
Yeah. And in that full disclosure, and I'm going to toot my own horn here a little bit. Josh asked, have you heard of DARPA Cyber Fast Track program? Yeah, I've heard of that.
I know.
Yeah, do you know? And I'm more for our listeners' sake, for some of the newer folks. But do you know when he announced DARPA Cyber Fast Track?
I don't remember.
It was at one of the DerbyCon conferences.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was like DerbyCon 4, DerbyCon 3,
and at the end of his conference, at the end of his talk, he said, "Hey, you know why I'm doing this? Because I saw this amazing presentation about these two guys that created this schmooball launcher that they said, like, if these two idiots in a garage can do this with about $600, and much to the disdain of our wives, build this amazingly capable attack platform that might have some military capability with cheap reusable hardware." And he said,
"Wait, okay,
wait." He
I'm
said,
going to give."
He said, this is why I went to bat for this program, to get these guys money to build these things that can help us as Americans. There's nothing I can do about their wives, but I can get them the $600 to do this thing. And
for those who don't know, I'm taking this. For those who don't know, this was a Barbie electric truck, pink Barbie electric truck, that was super powered by, I think, 4 batteries. Some ungodly amount of
very
volts.
large
one very large
lead-acid
battery,
battery,
and with a compressed air-powered schmooball launcher that, when fired at Bruce Potter with a heavy plexiglass shield, no, you didn't even fire that one at him.
He didn't have a shield at the time when we injured him.
They bruised his chest for like weeks. Weeks.
Fully remote drivable via camera. PVC pipe built semi-automatic reload capability. Schmooball launcher with compressed air. And that would have been me and former co-host Darren. Yeah.
Never in your life have you seen a grown man driving a pink Barbie Jeep with a bigger grin on his face.
Yes, via remote control. And for the record, that project was the inspiration for Mudge creating DARPA Cyber Fast Track program.
Bravo, sir.
So,
bravo.
To fully disclose my interaction with Mudge, needless to say, that night at the bar, Mudge bought all the drinks for Darren and I. And there were a number of drinks.
Also, I think it's interesting to know January of this year, and I found this article. It was like the day of reckoning at Twitter, where you're saying it was the CTO, right, that became CEO, Parag Agrawal.
Yep.
Agrawal took over for Jack Dorsey. It was then that both Sethi and Zacto Zacto sounds like Mudge was fired and Sethi resigned. That's what it. Yeah. But then, after Parag took over, after assuming the CEO position, reorganized the management staff and dismissed Dantley Davis, the chief design officer, and Michael Montano, the head of engineering.
Huh.
There was some serious shit going down the beginning of this year at Twitter. To have your two security people, one sounds like Mudge got fired. The other one resign. Your CTO take over as CEO, and then your chief design officer and head of engineering get fired.
Yeah. And somewhere right around
cleaning house,
that's what
dude.
I'm
that's what Jason was getting at.
Saying.
Yeah,
yeah. And,
they went in and they fucking axed everything.
And somewhere right around in there, and I don't know exactly when, there were 2 employees that were fired for potentially performing reconnaissance for the Saudi government into Twitter, and like deleting posts and doing all sorts of bad things on behalf of other governments, other regimes on Twitter, as employees that had full access to the production environment.
Right. Craziness.
Ouch.
Man. Like,
keep an eyeball on this one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, because then you've got Musk trying to buy Twitter, and one of the things we haven't talked about is
if he's
blatant fucking lying about bots.
If he's got any leverage, it's now.
Yeah,
it's now that he's got leverage,
and that's some of the things that have come up to saying that
Musk was going.
Mudge is doing this.
You guys are lying about how many bots that you have. We can go back in the history of this show and talk about how bots are being misreported on social media platforms. Like that has been a theme of the show. We've covered it on other shows on this network as well.
Yep.
Bot detection and all that stuff. We've always kind of had an inkling that Twitter and other social media networks have kind of been like, yeah, we've got this many users. And we're sitting here in the cybersecurity world going, do you really?
Do you really?
Like, how well are you if you can't determine whether an account is a bot or a person, how can you report to your shareholders how many actual users you have on your platform?
Well, we looked in the database, and there's 2.7 billion registered people.
And that's what we're reporting. But then you've got Musk going, wait, I was going to buy Twitter, but like now I'm not, because I think there's something shady going on with how that shit's been reported. Now you got Mudge saying, I play devil's advocate. We've all kind of said we're on side Mudge. We've squashed all of those things, right? Mudge going, yeah, I thought that too. That's in the
and even better,
like, they're flat out lying about how many users they have.
The big thing that I took away from this was Mudge is not saying, no, they're flat out lying about how many users they have. No, they're flat out lying about telling you how many bots they have because they don't fucking know.
Right.
And they have no way to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Bots are people too. Come on.
That's a great T-shirt. Bots are people too.
And Lee, you're
air quotes people.
and Lee, you're not wrong. If you think about
Twitter,
the more recent events that like through presidential campaigns and all that type of stuff, some of the biggest effect on the U.S. elections.
Sorry, you put a Twitter logo on a T-shirt that says "Bots are people too."
Coming to a cafe press near you.
I love it. I love it.
If someone puts that on Discord and sends me a link, I'll buy one.
Oh, me too.
Totally,
Me
we
too.
all should have had that shirt and worn it on the show tonight.
But to the point that like some of the most recent stuff about election manipulation and all of the studies that have been through those organizations that talk about freedom and so forth, that much of the alleged election hacking was largely determined to be through Twitter bots and so forth by affecting misinformation, tying that back to Dalvin.
It's the propaganda.
It's the propaganda, and that many of those, while bots, are actually controlled by a real human.
But I've heard multiple like really big personalities that have been on social networks like Twitter. Like they made a change in response to this, not so much the bots, but the way they deal with who sees what content. And he said, at some point, like, I got all of a sudden like more followers, and I couldn't quite figure it out. And like, does that probably mean that my tweets are being shown to more people because they made changes to the algorithm to not be as prejudiced as to how what content is shown to what people by whom? Like that. David said he did the similar, research.
Right,
Like, and again, I mean, none of this research necessarily is like completely conclusive that this is happening, but it's interesting.
Like I will say the same in that we talk about the algorithms about who gets shown what when,
right?
And it may be that folks are using some of these platforms less and less. That I think about what I've observed over Facebook over the last couple of weeks, making some pretty big posts about some things going on in my life and on Facebook, and that 2 weeks after the post, people and haven't making a post since, people are still doing the likes and the loves and the comments
because they didn't show it to them until that point.
Because they didn't show it to them until 2 weeks after the fact.
I found that too on Facebook specifically.
Totally.
I'm seeing notifications of people, and it's weird. Like
and Instagram is done.
Yeah, but like Facebook and Twitter, the more like ridiculous of a post I share, the more people they show it to. If it's something more serious, like, hey, you should update your revocation lists. I don't show that shit to anyone. I'm like, fucking serious right now? Like, I'm just trying to help people.
Just trying to help.
If I share a meme about Linux, my impressions are through the roof. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it makes no. I mean, I don't want to say like it's magic or it doesn't make sense. It does. There's an algorithm that is making those.
There's a reason why that's happening.
Algorithm and people, I would venture to guess, right, just from all the data we've seen, making those decisions. Which is just scary.
For me, it's almost like if I want to get more reach, post less often to Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, because like 2
we
weeks.
were talking about this.
Two,
like
2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I'm still getting like likes and comments and that type of stuff on a post from like when I was in the hospital.
There's like a bell curve. We were talking about this on the call today. There's a bell curve. Like if you share too much, then they don't show it to them. But if you don't share it, but there's like this. Where is that? Happy medium. That's that sweet spot of like how much content do I have to generate for you, which really fucking irritates me, right?
And I think it depends on the platform.
I am generating content that you are then monetizing. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're monetizing that content, right? In some way, shape, form, or fashion. But I'm generating that content and I'm giving it to you basically for free. That's
and arguably you're monetizing it.
Maybe I'm monetizing it too.
I mean, to get the algorithms and so forth, there's a person specifically that does a lot of thinking about these algorithms that I follow on Instagram. And it's a completely different community. It's in the everyday carry community and creative stuff and knife making and so forth. And they have a very specific market that they serve. And like he'll post a bunch of shit and it doesn't get seen by anybody. And then when people start liking it, it starts getting seen by wider and wider audiences because people like it, so they show it to more people. And he literally had to go to his fan base that follow him and say, like, hey folks, like, this is my living. And I make my living $150 at a time by posting this stuff for sale. And if you don't like it, nobody sees it.
Yeah.
Including you. So if you see something you like, please like it. And, like, hey, let's go hack the algorithm. And, you know, if you really like what I do and you bought my stuff and you like it, go back the last 20 posts that I did and like the last 20 posts. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, shit, I just sold a whole bunch of stuff today. Thank you so much. Because tons of people saw it.
But getting back to the Twitter thing, Jake Williams has an interesting quote from January of this year when there was that day of reckoning at Twitter. He says, Zacto and Sethi are two of the most sought-after security leaders in the entire cybersecurity industry. That any organization was ever lucky enough to have them at the same time was itself significant. To hear that they are both leaving the organization in what almost certainly are related circumstances that should be concerning for anyone who is concerned with the security of the platform. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Ding, ding,
Jake
ding,
Williams.
Yep.
Malware Jake on Twitter, ironically enough. Yeah.
Prophetic? Maybe.
So we'll see what happens. I think it's gonna be really. I was hopeful when Elon was talking about. Now, also, I don't want to buy a Tesla. Just want to throw that
on
out
the
there.
previous segment.
Yeah,
jaded.
Some of my friends, and they were posting pictures. A couple of my friends, our mutual friends, that I won't out who they are, but have bought Audi e-trons. Like that's looking more
Hell
like
yeah.
I want to spend my money, and not with the Tesla.
Yeah, we're in the market for a new vehicle in the next 2 years, and we're looking either hybrid or electric. And I'm encouraging my significant other to drive a Tesla just to see how it is. But more and more I hear, I'm like, and quite honestly, Davi's interview had nothing to do with my possible decision.
Right.
But like, you need maintenance on this. It'll be 6 months before we can get a part. You can't drive your Tesla. Sorry.
Oh, but like, you know what is astonishing to me, and it relates to technology, right? Is that
you know what amazes me is that Lee's asleep over there.
Is Lee falling asleep on us?
Look at him.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
We lost Josh too, right?
But what is
But Josh has got to go eat with the kidlets.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But what astonishes me is that there was a time where if you said that every person would have a computer, you were laughed out of the room.
Oh, yeah.
Like computers were for businesses, and regular people will never have a computer. I get the same kind of thing when I talk about
64,
diesel,
128K RAM. That's more than enough for anybody.
Diesel power or petrol powered devices. They're promoting those things, and I'm like, dude, everyone's gonna have an electric. I don't care if it's a lawnmower. I don't care if it's a car. Like whatever it is, like it's gonna be electric. Like the writing's on the wall. Like that's where it's going. But there are these people that are drawing these lines in the sand, going, "No, we should never have all this electric stuff." I'm like. But my son is one of them. Like everything should be gas powered. All my, lawn equipment. And I'm like, do you realize like when you're my age, all your shit is gonna be electric, dude. Like I hate to break it to you, but like I'm just telling you, I'll probably be long and gone by then. But like your shit is gonna be electric. Because we walked into Ace Hardware,
let me tell you, man.
they had a ride-on lawnmower that was electric. I'm like, well, that's pretty.
And the problem that
cool.
I have, because I would have bought one, is that I can't mow 3 acres with an electric freaking lawnmower.
You can over 3 days.
That's my problem, right? So if I could get an electric lawnmower right now on one charge and do my 3
Does the Eco one that has what's the battery
last, dude. It won't last for
how
3
long
acres.
how many hours does it take you? How many cigars you go through when you got your lawn?
So for me to mow my lawn, it's 2.5 hours on a rider. On a rider.
2.5
on a rider.
28 wide deck? Or 32?
I'm 32.
Okay. So all right. So you got some width there.
Yeah.
So you can smoke a really big cigar.
Oh, two. Or two.
Well, think about the professional
but what I did get was
that are out there
Lee?
running all day long.
What? Say that again?
Think about the professional landscapers. They're going to be mowing lawns for 8
all day long.
hours.
That's right.
they can't stop for a couple hours to charge the mower. They've got to keep going.
Yeah,
Can't you get like a battery pack like I have for my phone?
They got invest in
whole
swap
other
of batteries.
So here's the thing: 3 acres.
They're big.
I have one of those eco weed whackers.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had to get 2 batteries
Oh.
because I can't even weed whack 3 acres on one battery.
So to give you,
You just have way too much grass, man.
no, not too much grass. Our walkway at home was overgrown with weeds, and the first step was, let's go weed whack this thing. And we didn't actually have a working weed whacker because we paid somebody else to do our lawn.
Yeah.
And we needed to do a little maintenance. So we went down to Home Depot and we bought a weed whacker that was battery powered off of the same battery ecosystem that we already have.
Like Ryobi makes
like
that.
Ryobi, yeah,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I bought the $99
yep,
Ryobi one.
Sure.
And it didn't come with a battery because like I already have batteries for this ecosystem, and I have more batteries than I ever know what to do with because like every time I buy a new drill and I have 3 of them, it comes with a new battery. And
Right.
we went through 3 freaking batteries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To weed whack our freaking walkway, which is from here to that sink.
Right.
that was a
Admittedly-
little overgrown.
it was very overgrown.
All right, fine.
It was
There's
more
a-
like
back
a
in
lawn.
jungle. You were in the jungle.
Yeah.
But still,
I got another example for you. There's a Pacific short line. I forget the exact name, but it's at between San Pedro and Long Beach Harbor. It unloads. It uses trains to load up, make cars from loaded boxes off of ships up to 16,000 feet long. They run 24/7. They're getting an electric switching engine to go. The switching engine on the battery will run 24 hours. Guess how long it takes to charge?
2 days, 48 hours.
48 hours.
More than, yeah. So you've got to have how many of these things to stay productive?
right.
Or you got to run the you got to run the diesel ones while the other one's charging. It doesn't.
And
Something feels.
That's
we're
what you
not
have
quite
to
ready for the
solve
mass
for.
switch
Right.
yet.
You
You
You're
have
getting
to
there.
solve for long-term use.
And as much as I hate
Yeah, but
to-
look at how much better laptop battery. Never mind.
Oh,
and,
hell yeah.
and we're getting
Look at I was waiting for Tyler's reaction to that comment.
and as much as we're getting off down the rabbit trail
We
here,
are.
like
It's a great rabbit hole, though.
my mother-in-law made a very great point. Like, holy shit, you said your mother-in-law had a great point? Like, no one ever says that, right? Like, the big one with all of the switch to electric is you think about where do we get the materials for these batteries and what is it doing to the planet? We're trying to do
Right.
electric so it doesn't hurt
Harm
the planet. But think about the mining operations for this planet. And when you charge that battery-operated device,
It's burning energy.
where is that electricity coming from?
And how much electricity
gas
do we
plants.
have?
Natural gas or coal-powered
Plants.
plants. Like, that's not good.
I thought we had nuclear energy.
We do. We have one of those, and it's in Ukraine right now. The region's
getting
largest.
shelled.
Exactly. And that won't possibly ever go wrong, right? Because it never has done that before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fukushima.
But that's a whole interesting disinformation kind of thing, like where I try and fact check where.
Just fucking
Like-
colonize Mars. We're good.
But like the environmental stuff, I'm like, does that really help the environment, or does like what you're trying to replace to help the environment actually hurt the environment more?
Right.
You mean like windmills?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
windmills don't hurt anything. They used to make a lot of noise. Cape Wind Project.
But do windmills hurt the environment? Windmills is that a good
Windmills
source? Or
are
a great
one
source
of the
of
worst
power,
net
right?
negative sources of power on the planet.
They're what? A negative?
Not the new ones.
The older ones were really bad.
Sure.
They took more
Yes, they
power to
were.
stop. They started on fire. The lube inside of them to maintain it, the amount of
Oh, I see.
carbon
Yeah, yeah.
offset to build them, never actually.
There's always
made
time
it.
for lube.
And then
Yeah,
don't even
so-
talk about the
Yeah.
offshore
And they had the bird
builds.
problem.
Yeah, so but
And
Block
bird
Island.
problem.
Block
Offshore
Island.
builds.
Cape
So,
Wind
but
Project.
One of my wife's friends, her husband, was the diver that did the one of the divers that did the welding. I'm like, that's a really well paid. Like, that's a friggin' cool job. I'm like, I wouldn't want that job. Like, but if someone's got to do that job, like, props to them, man.
right.
Yep.
Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that's
Well,
for
I
the-
mean, think about what it did to the ocean floor. Think about
Yeah.
what it did to the fish ecosystem over there near the turbines.
Yeah, they
Right.
made more reefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
So-
no,
In terms of
gonna be
efficiency,
noisy.
hydro is one of the most efficient power sources.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you
The
could
one-
put water
and
behind the
nuclear.
dam, Vegas.
And nuclear is also very clean.
Yes, assuming it can be done safely.
Yeah, and we'll maintain it safely for all those years is the issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the cleanest, arguably not the most efficient, solar.
Yeah.
But and like we see this all the time in our town in the local Facebook group. Like somebody wants to put in a solar farm, they've got 10 acres, and like they want to put in a solar farm. That's good, like clean renewable energy. But everybody bitches like, no, they're going to cut down 10 acres of trees to put in the solar farm, and it's going to look ugly.
It's not really scalable yet, though. Like you can't do a 1 megawatt solar farm efficiently, and the cost of your panels and silicone to produce those and then maintain them long term with batteries for that production, like it's just not scalable yet.
That's not scalable.
Yeah. Larry, the judge from Texas would like to talk to you about solar in the winter.
Those will still put power. Thank you very much. And just get your ass up on the roof and broom off the snow.
Yeah.
Texas.
The reality is you need defense in depth. You need power solutions in depth. It can't be all solar, all nuclear, all whatever. It's got to be a mixture because they all have their strengths and weaknesses and downtime.
Yep, and you got to find efficient ways to store it.
Right.
That's one of the problems. A lot of our power production is instantaneous. There's not a lot of storage outside that generator.
Yep. Compressed gas into an abandoned mine, like, oh, that sounds fucking terrifying.
That sounds fracking amazing.
Wow.
On that note, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. We'll see you next time. Larry, take us out.
Oh, I was going to say, like,
Sorry,
over and we got to get out of here. Out.
Peace.
See ya.